Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today's lecture is lecture number 8. It is from unit 2, that is on page number 40 of your book. And the title of today's unit is Hope and Aspiration. As you all know that we discuss different topics under one unit. So this unit contains 3 readings. Reading number 1, I Have a Dream, that's a speech. Reading number 2, Glory and Hope, that is also a speech. And then we have reading number 3, I Dream a World, that is a poem. So before going towards the formal reading of our reading section 2.1, I would like to explain the 2 terms that are given here, hope and aspiration. Hope is to have a wish to get or do something or for something to happen. For example, you have hope that you get good marks. That is a wish, you can say, that you want to be fulfilled. And aspiration is a desire or ambition to achieve something. Now, like for example, you have given your paper and you are wishing that I should get good marks in my English paper. That is a hope, a wish, a hope that you are like trying to say. But when you have an aspiration, what you will do, you will prepare for your paper and you will aim it that you are going to get good marks. So this is called as aspiration. So these 3 readings, we will be looking at the features of hope and aspiration. What are the hopes that the people are having? What are the things they are wishing for? And what are the things they are determined to achieve them? What are the goals they are determining they are trying to achieve those goals? We will look at the feature of hope and inspiration through these 3 different readings. So as in every unit, in every lecture, we have some outline that how we will be covering this reading section. So first of all, as I have introduced the unit, that this is unit number 2 and we have 3 readings over here. Then we will discuss about the first reading, that is I Have a Dream, and we will discuss about the person who has delivered this speech. So the person is Martin Luther King Jr. Then I will give you background about the place and occasion of this speech, and then we will go towards the reading and explanation, and then after reading we will go towards the summary, and then at the end we will be discussing the study questions that are given at the end of this reading section. So first of all, we will discuss who is Martin Luther King Jr. So Martin Luther King Jr. born Michael King Jr. January 15, 1929, and he died on April 4, 1968, was an African American Baptist minister and activist who became the most visible spokesperson and leader in American civil rights movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. So we have we are familiar with the person that Martin Luther was you can say a leader. Simply we can say that he was a leader who was working for the civil rights of African Americans. Now Baptist minister means Baptist is used for like a member of Protestant Christian domination, advocating baptism only of the adult believer by total immersion. So it's a, you can say, branch of Christianity. You can say that the strict Christians, we can call them as the Baptist one. So he was baptized, means he was a Christian who became the most visible spokesperson and leader in American civil rights movement from 55 until his assassination. So he was working for the civil rights. King advanced civil rights through non-violence and civil disobedience, inspired by his Christian belief and non-violent activism of Mahatma Gandhi. He was the son of early civil rights activist Martin Luther King Sr. So his father was also the civil rights activist. He was also working for the civil rights. Now, what is civil rights? Civil rights, in short words, you can see that every possible right that a citizen can have in a city, we can, in a country, in a city, we can call them as civil rights. But so forth, if you are just going to elaborate it, what are the civil rights? So you can see that being the part of a city, a country, a citizen of a certain area, what are your social rights, what are your economical rights, what are your freedom and independence that you can have in a certain area, that can be called as civil rights. So the civil right movement, this is specifically talking about this person who participated in the civil right activist movement or the civil right movements. So this is particularly related to this era from 55 to 68. So this civil rights movement in United States was a decades-long campaign by African American and their like-minded allies to end institutionalized racial discrimination, disenfranchisement, and racial segregation in United States. So what was happening that in United States, the black people, they were discriminated on the basis of their color. So basically, the civil rights movement was based on that specific idea that there are like people who are black, there are people who are white, but both of them, they are having equal rights. So this movement is basically related to the rights of African people who are living in America. So this is related to them. Now, institutionalized racial discrimination means that they discriminated black people on the basis of their color in every possible era, in every possible area, in every possible way. They were trying to discriminate them. The movement has its origin in the Reconstruction era during the late 19th century, although it made its largest legislative gains in mid-1960s after years of direct action and grassroots protest. The social movement's major non-violent resistance and civil disobedience campaigns eventually secured new protection in federal law for the human rights of all Americans. So what does it mean? That they were trying to secure, they were trying to have a peace, and you can see that they were trying to provide every possible civil right to the black people, which the Americans were trying to discriminate. So this is you can see the movement that was for the sake of, for the benefit of the black people. So I have a dream, we are reading section 2.1, that is on page number 41. Its background is, it's a public speech that was delivered by American civil rights activist Martin Luther Jr., right, King Jr. So it was delivered on the occasion of March on Washington, the march was in Washington for jobs and freedom. So this speech is one of the, you can say that part of this march, not the month march, the moment march. So it was also a part of that, and then it was delivered on you can say 28th August 1963, and it was delivered in Washington DC to over 250,000 people. So he was trying to convey his message to over 250,000 people who were there in Washington DC. Now we will come towards the reading of the text. Reading section 2.1. I have a dream, Martin Luther King Jr. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation and Proclamation. So, now what does 5 score years means? Score stands for 20. So 5 scores means 100 saal. So 100 years ago, a great American, right, in whose symbolic shadow means that we are under the shadow of his symbolic emancipation that he signed, means that the thing that he signed, the agreement that he signed, we all are standing under that under the shadow of that particular thing that he signed. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. Now, what was the importance of this thing? It was a ray of hope. Beacon of light of hope means that it was a beacon of hope for the people, for the black people. Negro are again the black slaves, the black slaves who had been sneered, means that who were discriminated on like every possible way, sneered in the flames of withering injustice, means that they were discriminated, they were being the victims of discrimination, injustice, jobbery, every possible bad thing that you can think of. So they were the victims of injustice, and this it became a joyous daybreak to the end of long night of captivity. So this sign, this particular thing, Emancipation Proclamation, means that the thing that he proclaimed, that he declared, this was the day when when majority of the people, they somehow dreamed of a day where they can be like, where they saw that they are free from this slavery, and they are free to move around in America just like the white people. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that the Negro is still not free. It means if we just look around, after 100 years, this is a reality. We cannot say that this is not a true fact, or you can say that we cannot hide our faces from this fact that the Negroes are still not free. Means that they are still slaves. The black people are still under slavery. 100 years later, the life of Negroes is still sadly crippled by the manacles of the segregation and chains of discrimination. So, he is trying to say that the black people, even after 100 years, they are crippled by manacles of segregation and chains of discrimination. Means कि उनकी ज़िंदगी क्या है अभी भी like they are still, you can say, in chains. We have somehow bound them. We have somehow उनको हम लोगों ने जो एक कह सकते हैं ना कि एक हथकड़ियों ने और एक जंजीरों ने उनको जकड़ी हुई है. So this is not going to be ये झूठ नहीं है. This is a fact that they are still under the segregation. They are still under the you can say shadow of injustice and discrimination. What 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years, the Negro is still languished in the corner of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So, we have come here today to dramatize an appalling condition. These are the words of Martin Luther King Jr. He is trying to say that though we have tried a lot 100 years ago you can say that the American people, the great American people, they have signed a proclamation. This is the explanation that I am trying to give you, that 100 years ago, an American leader, you can say, he signed that the American, the Negroes, the black people, they will be free and they will enjoy their rights just like the white Americans are doing. But the fact is, the 100 years they have passed. We are still under the shadow of this injustice and slaverism. He is trying to say it was a fact, or you can say that it was a pact that was signed on the basis of this, that after 100 years the black people, they will be free in America just like the white people. But the fact is, they are still in chains. After 100 years have passed, Negroes are still living in poverty, right? They are still having no identity based on their language, based on their culture, nothing. They don't have any identity, and they find himself in exile. Exile means that who is forced to move outside from his own land. So he is trying to say that the Negroes are still in exile from their own land. So we have come here today to dramatize an appealing condition. So he is trying to say that we people, you and I, we are here to ask for our rights. We are here to make it as a memorable day, so that people will remember it and they will also give us our rights. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent word of the construction and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fail here. Now it means that, as he said in the earlier, you can say, speech, that the great American leader, he has signed the pact, he has signed the thing that you will be free. So he's saying that we are today here to ask for that freedom. We are here to ask the people to let us be free, so that we can enjoy our freedom just like the Americans who are enjoying their freedom. So he's saying that, as you know that a check is signed, then later on when we take it to the bank, it is like the bankers, they cash it for us. So he's trying to say that if we just look at this moment, this scenario, this situation, we are here with that check. We are here to the central area, to the point. We want to cash our check. We want the money. We want the true thing. We don't believe now on the check. We want our money. We want the cash of this thing. So he is trying to say that when the architects of Republic wrote the magnificent word of construction, so it means that the architects, they first of all design a building on a paper. So he is trying to say that the architects, the builders who have constructed our freedom on paper. So we are here for the Declaration of Independence, means that the promises have been met. They have already made the promises that they will let us be free just like the other people. But we are here to remind them that you have promised something. Now you have to fulfill it in a practical way. This note was a promise that all men would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So he is saying that the note, the paper was a promise. So we are today here so that we can ask for the fulfillment of that promise. You have already promised something, now you have to fulfill it. Now you have to make it practical, you have to give us our rights. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. So he's saying that it is obvious, it is true today that America is now unable to fulfill the promise when it comes to the black people. Colored are concerned means that America has promised something, that it will give equal rights to both white and black. But today when we look at her promise, so we can see that the black are now nowhere. According to that promise, the black are not having their rights. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. So if you just look at the words of the Martin Luther, they are quite very easy to understand. He is trying to link it with money, how a defaulted check is returned. When you don't have money in your account, the check is, the bank people, they will return the check to you that you don't have money in your account. So similarly, he is trying to relate it that the leaders have given us a check, an honor, that we are paying you something. But when we took it to the bank people, they returned it to us, that saying that you don't have insufficient funds, insufficient funds are in your account, so that we cannot cash the check. Similarly, he is trying to say that when the leaders, they promised of their rights, they promised for both white and black people, but the white, they are enjoying their money, and the black Negro people, they have a bad check, so they are unable to enjoy their freedom. But we refuse to believe that the bank of justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great wallet of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash the check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. So he is trying to say that we have a hope. And what is that hope? That the bank people, they are trying to fool us. They do have money, they do have sufficient funds, and our check, it is not a bad check. So he's trying to convince the leader that we are hoping from you people that so forth, whatever the lake was, whatever we have not achieved, you will now let us to achieve it. You will now give us, the black people, you will give us the freedom. So we black people, we will also enjoy our freedom just like the white people. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America and the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilized of gradualism. So he is trying to say that while we are on this spot, because I have not mentioned this spot, but it is related to, it is the same place where Abraham Lincoln has made his speech. So he is trying to remind them that why we are here, so that we have a hope that you will give us the satisfaction, you will give us the things that you have promised for. And now this area, this has got a history that the things that America has faced are somehow related to the same place. The thing that America was not in peace, and then later it's got its peace. So we are also here with that, you can say, hope that you will also give us the peace. Now is the time to take real promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from dark and desolate valley of segregation. So he's saying that it's the time. Now we should move towards the real practical democracy. We should now move towards the practical democracy. We should now give every person their rights, their freedom, so that they can also enjoy. And we should now move from. Now this is the time to rise from dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. He is saying that though we were living in a dark valley where there was no light, but we should now move towards the sunlight. We should move towards the path where there is a light, sunlit. Racial justice means that where there is a light which will remove all the discriminations that people are facing. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Just look at the words, how he is playing with the words, that you might have seen that now we should open the door of opportunity for God's children means that we should also let the black people to enjoy their freedom, to have their civil rights. Civil rights means to have their social rights, to have their economical rights, and to have their, you can say, cultural rights. We should not discriminate them on the basis of their color. So he's trying to say that we should now let everybody enjoy their freedom. And you might have seen quicksand means you might have seen sand. When you just take it in your hand, it will slip down from your fingers, from the mid of your fingers. So he is trying to say that we should now strong our nation. We should now make strong America so that everybody will enjoy the freedom here, and everybody will be on a rock, solid rock of brotherhood. Means that American black should accept American white, and American white should accept American black. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment and to underestimate the discrimination of the Negro. So he is saying that if we will not work on this thing, it is just like this speech of Kaigism. He was trying to say that we have to be one nation. So he is also saying that the Negroes, the discrimination that Negroes are facing, we should now look over it. The problem, we should highlight this problem. We should try to remove this problem. This sweltering summer of the Negro legitimate discontent will not pass until this is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. So he is trying to say that this summer, the hard work, this sweltering summer means that he is trying to say that the hard work that is on the Negroes, the difficult time that is on the Negroes, it should pass. It should pass, and it should now bring freedom and equality. The way Americans are having, the white people are having freedom and equality, the Negroes should also have freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end but a beginning. So what happened in 1963, we will also talk on this. It's referring to the, you can say, the sign, the agreement. It is referring back to the agreement, that the agreement that you signed was not the end of the thing. It was the beginning, that you said that we will give freedom, we will give justice, we will give equality to every people. So it was the beginning that you promised for. Those who hope that Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. So he is saying that if you will not fulfill with the promises, the Negroes, they are again going to have strikes against you. They will also they will be like, the nation will face worse condition if you are not going to fulfill the words which you have promised for the black people. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. So he is trying to say that until and unless you give equal opportunity to both American and white American people and black Negroes or Americans, there will be no peace. Whirlwind means the wind that is that is in circular motion and that takes everything with it. So he is saying that until and unless you give equal opportunity to both Negroes and American, until and unless you do that, there's going to be a revolt, there's going to be a whirlwind that is going to destroy each and everything, and the justice and the peace that you people are observing now, you won't observe it later on if the whirlwinds still if it is going to continue again. So in short, he is trying to convince them, he is trying to show them the future that if you are not going to help the black people, if you are not going to give them their freedom, if you are not going to give them their justice, their equality, they are going to act like this whirlwind, and they are going to revolt against you. That's all for today. Thank you so much. We will continue it in the next lecture.